Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's about 4:45 in the afternoon. It's Friday, January 25th of 2019. Somebody in class actually asked a really good question. They asked about which 10K should they use, and I think they were referencing the year of filing. And there's 2 years you have to pay attention to. There's the year of filing, and then there's the applicable fiscal year. Uh, a lot of times the questions you're going to be answering are based on the fiscal year of the company. And so if you think about it, the filing for fiscal year 2013, which is the year you're interested in, is going to actually have been filed in 2014 after the fiscal year of interest has ended. And that's if the fiscal year and the calendar year line up. And I believe in this case with Mattel Inc. that is the way this works. And so I pull up my screen. I've already brought myself to the Edgar homepage, and I just did a Google search. I just searched for Google SEC Edgar database, and it gave me a link, and I was able to click on this. For accounting majors and so forth, what you may want to do is you may want to bookmark this site or create a link on your desktop to be able to click to get to it. So this way you don't have to worry about remembering exactly where it is. All right. Now, there are a couple of different things. I'm going to come here. There's a lot of different, you can learn about Edgar. There's a quick tutorial on using Edgar. There's how to search Edgar, so these are more instructions on how to do things in Edgar, a company filing search, and then there's this Edgarsearch tools. And so I'm going to click on that right now. And this just gives us a list of the different ways that we can search for information in the Edgar database. And so what I'm going to choose here is I'm going to take a look, and we can see that this is company or fund name, ticker symbol, so on and so forth. And so I know the company name, so I click on this and it brings me up to a very simple place where I can type in the name of the company. If I have the ticker symbol, I can type it into the fast search. There's also an ability to search for additional information that you have. So we're going to just focus on the company name to keep this simple. And so we know we're looking for Mattel. Make sure you spell it correctly, because otherwise different things will show up. Like if you left off a T, which I did when I was first practicing, you end up getting some really interesting things that have nothing to do with the toy company Mattel. So we click search, and boom, we get some things. And we notice that there's a bunch of these different company entries here. And so, wow, you say, which one do we want? Well, you could do, since there's only a couple of them here, you could do kind of the hunt and peck method and just search through each one. Or you can kind of look at the company here. And this one here right in the middle is of interest to me. This says Mattel Inc. DE, which is Delaware, which is where a lot of corporations are incorporated because of the tax climate in Delaware. They have an SIC code associated with it, which is associated with dolls and stuffed toys. And so since we know that the case is dealing with Mattel, the toy maker, that looks like a pretty good one to click on. So we're going to go there first. And boom, okay, this looks like a winner. We got lots of information here, and this looks like the right company. And we can look up in this blue area here, and it gives us the address. And so we've got a number of different ways to identify this company here. So then you look and it's like, wow, there's just a lot here. Well, if you know what you're looking for, like in this case, we know we're looking for a 10K, you can come up here to the filing type. There's a number of ways that you can filter this information. And so we can type in 10K. And then boom, it just lists all the different 10Ks. You want to be careful using the dates here, because I believe the dates have to do with the filing dates and not necessarily the applicable fiscal year dates. And so you want to be careful using that if you get confused. So I'm looking, and I've got these filing dates over here. I think somebody had asked about this one that was filed on February 26th of 2013, and honestly, I could see how this could happen because it says look for the 10K for 2013, and you're looking, and from somebody who has never used this before or is unsure, that looks like a perfectly reasonable selection. But what you'd end up with is you'd end up with the 10K for fiscal year 2012. And so what you want to do is go to the one that was filed on February 26th of 2014, and that's the one you're going to want to focus on. And so we go over here, and it's a little bit of a pain in the neck because the dates and stuff, you got to be careful because it's all in light blue here, and so you got to kind of go across on the white line to find the right one. Boom. And so we can click on this here and click on documents, and you get a whole bunch of stuff that comes up. For any of you that have been introduced to this term XBRL, this is a whole bunch of information here that's now required to help people search data related to multiple companies. So this is kind of a cool classification scheme. We talk a little bit about it in systems. I'm still trying to figure out how to work this discussion in, because if you're going to work for a publicly traded company, this XBRL information is actually pretty useful to understand. So up here, I see there's a form. The first line in the sequence is Form 10K. EX here, I believe, is exhibits, and so we don't necessarily want that. You also can get the complete submission text file here, which will give you a text file. So right now the HTML document is really fine for our purposes, I think. So I'm going to click on it because this will bring up the document in our window. And so we see that this is the Form 10K. And it's clicked. It's the annual report pursuant to Section 13 or 15D of the Security Exchange Act of 1934. So that gives us our reference back to this very important Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. There were two of them. There was one in 1933 and one in 1934. And those were passed by Congress and signed by the President after the Great Depression that started in 1929 and really didn't end formally until the entry into World War II. So it lasted a long time, although there were many peaks and valleys along the way. That's a little bit of history, I guess. So at any rate, look right underneath that, and in smaller text it says for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2013. So now we know we have the right one. And this again gives us some more information here. Notice here we have information, a title of each class. They've got common stock, $1 par value. That's not unusual. Remember, par value of stock is really just, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a stated value for purposes of recording the initial stock offerings. If someone was to have paid $100 for a share of common stock, they would record it at Mattel would record it as $1 in the common stock account, and then the other $99 would go into additional paid-in capital. So that's just a little side lesson there. So here we go, and notice when you go into the HTML document, everything becomes hyperlinked, which is a nice feature. The text one isn't. I don't believe the text one works that way. So that's why sometimes I prefer using the HTML version. And so we can go through and look at what's here. And there's a lot more information here than in just the standard annual report that a corporation issues. But at this point, what you'd want to do is then look at the case 1.3 and begin to look. And it says, find the following items in Mattel's 2013 Form 10K and indicate the page numbers where the items can be found. And so they want to know where the balance sheet is. Well, look for item number 8, says financial statements and supplementary data. And so that'll take us right to that section. And so we have management's report on internal control over financial reporting, which is actually pretty important. And then the report of the independent registered public accounting firm, which is PricewaterhouseCoopers. Okay, and that's actually one of the questions too later on down the line there. I think it says auditor's report is H, and so it's page 56 of the document. And so we come down here, and here's our consolidated balance sheets for the company. And so it's on page 57, and that's it, page 57. And so we can look at it and we can see that under assets, again, they start out with current assets, non-current assets, and total assets. Under current assets, we have cash and equivalents. Accounts receivable, net of allowances. For those of you that remember from your Principles of Accounting class, it's net of allowances, so it's the allowance for doubtful accounts that we're talking about there. And then we have our inventory accounts, and remember, inventory can be valued at LIFO, last in, first out, FIFO, first in, first out, or weighted average. Then you've got your prepaid expenses and other current assets. And so those are the things that these are in order of liquidity. So cash and equivalents is already in cash or pretty close to it. And accounts receivable is the one that should be, usually we want it due within about 90 days, preferably within 30 or 60 days. We want to be able to collect most of it. And then the inventories have to be liquidated through sales. And so, and if you notice, these are kind of in declining amounts. They are fairly liquid here. So that's an interesting thing to notice. Our non-current assets are the property, plant, and equipment net, and it's net of their accumulated depreciation expense. And then we have our goodwill. So goodwill, again, is recognized when they purchase other business entities and roll it up into their own when they're doing their consolidations. So that's where that's coming from. And then we have other non-current assets. And again, if you want to know more about any of these particular line items, you would then go to the note in the financial statements that covered that particular line item in the balance sheet, and it would tell you more about it. And then the same thing, we come down here, liabilities and stockholders' equity. We've got our current and our non-current. And then we've got our commitments and contingencies. Stockholders' equity, they reference the C Note 11, so you can go and take a look at what those relate to. But we have our total current liabilities, our total non-current liabilities. There isn't a total liabilities amount because this side of the accounting equation is liabilities plus equity. So we have assets equals liabilities plus equity, so they have a total liabilities and equity amount that they add up here. Oh, sorry, hit the boom mic here. And then notice here, common stock, $1 par value, 1 billion shares authorized, 441.4 million shares issued. And if we come over here, notice we have $441,369 recorded. And so that's the $1 par for share. And then they've got an additional paid in capital account for whatever was paid for the share beyond that. The other important thing to note is, jeepers, how is this money? This is in thousands except share data. And so the per share data is not going to be in thousands. So when you're looking at this and reading this 441,369, you actually have to add 3 zeros to that, and that's the real number. So these are some pretty big numbers here. So this cash and cash equivalents is actually not 1,039,216. You've got to add a few zeros to that. So that's a whole lot of cash. So at any rate, wow, this is at 13 minutes and 24 seconds, so I've got to wrap this up. So hopefully this helps you a little bit in terms of navigating. Like I said, I would use the HTML version of this document to do assignments like this and to gather initial information. If you want to read it in depth, you can download the text document, and I'm old-fashioned. I like to print out some pages and kind of read through them. And but that's just me. Some people like to read them on their tablet or laptop, and that's okay too. So anyway, hopefully this helps clear that up. And well, I want everybody to have a good, safe weekend, and hopefully you don't struggle too much with the assignment. And I will chat with you on Monday.